We're going to do some Zentangle again. We've done that the last couple of years. Zentangle, I should write it down here, is a registered art form. It's Zentangle. And it's a brilliant format for beginning a little piece of creativity without being intimidated right off the bat, and then the possibilities are endless. So it starts with a very with some tight parameters, but then the possibilities are endless. So it begins with, and of course you can begin it any way, but I really like, if you've never done this before, to start with this particular format, and that is with a 3-inch square drawn in pencil. It is allowable to use a ruler in this situation, so I've drawn a 3-inch square. I recommend drawing it fairly lightly because you can erase the pencil lines later. That creates a different kind of look, a very nice look, but I've drawn the lines darker here so that you can actually see them in the video I'm doing. But from there, divide each side into 3. Now again, you can use a ruler for this part, but I'm just going to eyeball it because it really isn't all that important that they're exactly equal. And so I'm going to make 2 lines vertically and then divide it again horizontally. And you can see my lines are a little bit wobbly, and that's okay. The basic idea is to get these 9 squares to start off with, and already we've ordered the chaos a little bit by breaking it down into smaller bits. Then we put the pencil aside because we do not want to be tempted to erase anything. There aren't any mistakes in art anyway, as far as I'm concerned, but especially with Zentangle, there is no such thing as a mistake. And the discipline of using a pen allows us to turn what we might call happy accidents, or lines that don't go the way we would like them to go, into just another little piece of creativity. So we now have these 9 little squares, and I recommend a felt tip pen. Micron, M-I-C-R-O-N, is a very good product. Sharpie pens tend to bleed. They do make some Sharpies now that don't bleed, so those would work. This one is a calligraphy, a very small calligraphy pen. And it's interesting because you can get some different widths of lines, so that could be fun too. So that's a possibility. But I'm going to start with, actually, I'll use the calligraphy pen because it's a little thicker. You might be able to see what I'm doing. This one is a little bit thinner, but maybe you can see better with the calligraphy pen. So the idea is to doodle. This is like a formalized way to doodle and can become very meditative. So that's where the tangle part comes in. So most of us like to doodle. So I'm just going to start with a line to divide that box that way. Then I'm going to draw another one. This is totally stream of consciousness here. I'm just dividing these little triangles, or these little shapes, into triangles, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that to the same box. Then, and this is totally stream of consciousness, you can go ahead and do exactly the same thing in each square, which is the propensity of some people. It's not mine. I have a very hard time repeating anything like that. So instead of repeating this, see, I can't even do it in the second square. Instead of repeating this in each square, I'm going to just go off and do my own thing in these little divided triangles. And just see where I end up. This one, I think I'm just going to do lines. So there literally are no rules to this outside of starting with a 3-inch square and dividing it into 9 squares. And after you do a few Zentangles, you don't even really have to stick to that format. Then it's always an option to color some of these in and see what kinds of shapes those make. So you can do a very sort of irrational process the way I am here, or a very repeated and rational. I find circles a lot of fun because varying the size of the circles creates sometimes interesting little shapes between the circles. Sometimes they look a lot like pebbles or bubbles. And again, you can go across the lines. You don't have to stick to those lines. And again, coloring in a few is always an option. And so that's basically Zentangle. So here's one I did, I don't know, a year or so ago. And here's one that went totally off the grid. And here I left the squares. I inked some of the squares, and then in the corners I took out the pencil and left those open. This is one that is totally irrational. Started with a square, but then just sort of went off and erased those pencil squares. And this is one that didn't do any straight lines, and it makes a wonderful sort of repeated shell pattern, which is a lot of fun. So as I say, the possibilities are endless.